Thank you. Let's call to order the Town of Basalt Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Roll call vote, please. Roll call, please.
Okay, and I'm just making a note that it's 6:09. Bill Marin,
Yo.
Kyle Overketter. Gino Rossetti.
Here.
Eric Volzek. Eric had let me know that he had a conflict. Michelle Tebow.
Here.
Bernie Grauer.
Here.
Rob Levitt.
Yes.
Cindy Hirschfeld is not on now. Looks like she's going to be joining us later. And just as a note, that Cindy will be able to vote tonight because Eric is not present.
Alrighty, thank you. Let's start off with approving the minutes from January 5th, 2021. Does anyone have any additions, changes, or corrections to make? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
We'll move.
We have a
Second.
first, a second. Gino's first, Rob is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please raise your hand so I can see. Cindy?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so the minutes pass 7-0. And Cindy, I just had made it clear for the record before you joined us that you will be able to vote tonight.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And now James and I are going to switch places.
Okay, work session, amendments to the community affordable housing guidelines. Item 3A and 3B. James.
Yeah, just a quick second here. I'm gonna share my screen. Attempt to anyway. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is a work session on changes to the livability guidelines for affordable housing units that are in the town's community housing guidelines. The Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, BAC, has worked with staff to propose some adjustments to the current livability guidelines for affordable housing. As a bit of background, BAC added livability standards for affordable housing units in the community housing guidelines in 2015. BAC felt that some updates were needed based on experiences that they've had in reviewing specifics on affordable housing units in development applications. And so when BAC originally established the affordable housing livability standards, they worked with a couple of architects to come up with requirements on kitchen appliances, on dining space and kitchen sizes, as well as number of bathrooms that were required in different sizes of units, and then also storage requirements. So in doing this update, they've checked in with some of the property managers of affordable housing units in Basalt, including the property managers of the Roaring Fork Apartments, as well as the Willits 7 affordable housing units. And they also checked in with an architect to look at adjustments to the guidelines to better fit some of the problems that they have been seeing in terms of affordable housing units in development applications. And specifically, we've got in strike-through and underlined text in your packet the proposed adjustments that they're looking at. And so they are to better size the required appliances based on unit sizes. They were finding that they needed to allow for some smaller appliances in some of the smaller affordable housing units to really meet the kitchen size requirements. In addition, they proposed to allow for mini sized tubs in the studio units due to the size limitations for studios. They found that requiring large tubs in all the units wasn't really necessary, so they proposing to allow for a mini tub in the studios. They're proposing to provide the main changes related to storage, which is a hot topic on affordable housing units. Currently, the requirement is subjective on a case-by-case basis, and it was felt by both Bach as well as staff that there's a need to move to more of a kind of a concrete objective size for storage areas and storage spaces for affordable housing units. And what they came up with in working with the property managers is they felt that they needed a required size that was similar to the storage units that were included in the Roaring Fork Apartments project, which is a 7-foot by 7-foot storage area. And they proposed for that to be on the first floor of buildings, so that you know, you didn't have to lug stuff upstairs if you had an upper unit. And then they also felt that it was important to have bicycle storage that's enclosed. So they felt that in addition to that 7-foot wide by 7-foot deep storage unit for each unit, that it should be required that there be enclosed bike storage for at least one bike per bedroom that you have in the development. And they did keep in there that they could adjust, you know, requirements on a project-by-project basis, but they felt these adjustments really helped increase the livability in some of the affordable housing units. So staff wanted to bring these adjustments to P&Z as an information item, but also to solicit comments from P&Z on the adjustments for Bach and ultimately council to consider. So staff would suggest having P&Z discussion and comments if you have any comments on the adjustments for Bach.
Alrighty, James, could you make the, stop the screen sharing so I could see everyone all in one shot, so it makes it easier to navigate?
Yeah.
There we go, thank you. Let's run through for comments. Michelle, would you like to start?
I would. I guess my question is, I don't know if this is the right spot for it, but what about things like energy efficiency, having E-Star rated appliances, the quality of materials? I mean, just real basic, no VOC paint, cabinets or furnishings allowed. Something about the indoor quality exchange required. And just practical design efforts. I mean, I'm going to push the envelope a little bit here, but just design efforts towards net zero energy buildings. Maybe that's written somewhere else in the Bach documents, but it would be great to have something about energy efficiency and quality of air circulation here.
We don't really have requirements in the community housing guidelines related to energy efficiency. Those kind of come in through our sustainable building regulations, basically on all units. You know, in terms of the quality of materials for the indoors, that's a good comment, and we can see if Bach can encourage that through some language. But if P&Z desires, you could have a conversation whether you want to add some language to these requirements related to energy efficient appliances and fixtures.
They're pretty commonplace now, so I feel like that's not a big ask, but.
Well, I want to chime in right now because I'm project manager on 2 affordable projects right now. And the current guidelines, though well-intentioned, you know, and just when I'm done, I'll let you talk, all right? The current environmental guidelines push these projects to the border of not being affordable or not being even attainable without a much, much greater municipal subsidy. So I want people who, when you do require these things, they're easy to achieve from a process standpoint, from a financial standpoint, they push them well out of range of affordability. For example, one project I'm doing in Carbondale, there's virtually no finishes whatsoever because the cost of doing, VOC-free construction, VRV ventilation, and the extra insulation required plus setting up for the net zero is so expensive that, you have things like concrete floors and steel cabinets and very, very minimal finishes. But, for affordable housing, you look at it like the next step down from that is living in the backseat of your car. So in that sense, it's fine, but everyone needs to be cognizant when you ask these things, then they become not just a little bit more expensive, but significantly more expensive. So Gina, you comment. Just hang on a second, Michelle.
Bill, I just have a question for you to consider. This is a very lengthy document, and I'm all sure that we all have some interest in one of the sections. Would you mind if we just went section by section so that we'd all stay in the same box?
Gino, I think you're referring maybe to the next item, which is the Public Works Manual. This is the affordable housing livability requirements, the one pager.
It's on page 89 of your packet, Gino.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Well, Gino has a hard copy, so, it is just right after the minutes.
Well, this is interesting because I don't have anything on affordable housing. I don't have anything on 3A.
Susan, that wasn't in my packet either. It was only in the packet that you just distributed today.
Sorry.
It wasn't in the Friday packet.
Boy, I'm not sure how that happened. So Gino, you didn't have anything called Community Housing Guidelines, Affordable Housing Livability Standard Adjustment Work Session? You didn't have that? Sorry, maybe what we can do is this time sensitive, James?
No, this
Because I'm
isn't.
thinking that what we should do is, talk generally about a couple of these things, and then we can bring it back for another P&Z meeting, and depending on the nature of your comments, maybe we'll do a check-in with Bach before we come back, if that works. Because I think so far your comments have been, that from two different perspectives, so, maybe that's also something that Bach can weigh in on, but maybe we can have other discussion from folks that had an opportunity to read the second online. It would have been in the first, but on the second, who else maybe has comments on this?
Well, let's let Michelle finish Michelle got cut off, and I'm sorry about that. So let me let her finish.
Yeah, no problem at all. Bill, I totally hear what you're saying about the costs, but if we don't start encouraging developments to move towards more environmental, sustainably practiced construction, it's never going to happen. And I know about the cost because I've done a bunch of affordable housing projects, and you're right, there's a ton of public subsidy, which is why I don't want to require it. I just want to strongly suggest that the developers on these projects try to get a step in that direction. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. So Susan, do you want to just freeze this whole thing right here and come back and revisit it the next?
Well, I think it'd be helpful if other people have comments on the
Okay,
item.
Let's run through them. Okay, Cindy, yes.
My overall thought is, while I think it's admirable to encourage those kind of resource efficient building things, I think weighing that against the need that we have right now for affordable housing, in my view, I think the need for affordable housing outweighs that right now, priority wise. And so I would hate to think that, somebody would be dissuaded from building affordable housing, because they got overwhelmed by requirements. So, I don't know. It sounds like, Michelle, you're saying that it would be encouraged instead of required. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of incentives that could be built in, but I wouldn't be in favor of making it an actual requirement at this point.
Well, okay, thank you, Cindy. Let's go back in the list. Let's go to Kyle. Kyle, do you have any comments to make?
Yeah, I would say that, I guess I'll just go down the list. I think a 4-burner stove is way too big. Doesn't need to have one for a studio and 1 bedroom. I don't think we need necessarily an oven. It could be a convection oven. And I guess this goes towards, if we want more environmentally friendly construction, one way to get there is reducing just the overall footprint. And we're used to large kitchens, but with good design, you can get a much smaller kitchen footprint. So that's kind of where I'm trying to go here. Again, I think the storage is great, definitely needed for especially this community. Not in favor of a mini tub. I think at that point, the tub is useless and you can only shower in it anyways. And that's just from the pictures I just pulled up. Maybe there's a technical standard for what a mini tub actually is. But these look very small and you wouldn't be able to bathe in it anyways. So again, if we reduce the overall footprint of the apartment, you're reducing cost, and you can maybe move towards requiring non-VOC instead. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Kyle. Gino, did you ever get a chance to get the couple sheets from Bach loaded up, or do you want to just pass till next time when we go back to this?
And I do apologize. What happened is we did rearrange the order of the packet material. So when we built it, you have to wade through a lot of stuff in the first packet to get it, but it was after the Public Works Manual, so that's probably why you didn't find it.
All right, thank you, Susan. Bernie, do you have any comments to make about this?
Well, I appreciate the forward thinking that our new members are bringing to the P&Z. I think that's quite refreshing, and I think they're quite worthwhile. I have a question for Bill. These affordable housing Bach requirements, the construction still must meet the green efficiency standards overall the town has for any residential similar structure, right?
Yes, that's true. That's true. And that's where a lot of these regulations come from.
Yeah, so I do like the idea of a list of supplemental enhancements that should be considered. And I like the idea of not including what's not necessary if you're trying to get efficiency, get as many people housed in decent housing without being stuck on the old parameters that the kitchen has to be so big or everybody has to have a shower and a tub. So I like Kyle's observations, and I think maybe we could include more of them in our Bach guidelines for developers who want to take advantage of these new approaches. Other than that, I find the suggestions acceptable.
Thank you, Bernie. Rob?
Yeah, first on the 7 foot by 7 foot storage, would you want to just say a minimum of 50 square feet per unit instead of dictating the exact size? Would that requirement extend to Lot J, Fork Front Park? Because there's some storage questions there.
That would be a question, since they're through the sketch plan review, it could be part of the conversation, but I think generally we would encourage that Bach supported the storage as they had it as part of their prior application, to kind of get to the concept. So, it could be a discussion item. We could have Bach weigh in on that as part of the final plan review.
My memory is that the storage there was minimal, and now we actually have real guidelines.
Yeah.
As far as Michelle's thoughts, Energy Star appliances nowadays, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'd like to think that we're forward-thinking and progressive, that we incorporate as much sustainability as possible. There's obviously a full palette of choices that can be done through all phases of the construction, and I think our job is to encourage that.
Thank you, Rob. I have a couple of comments of my own to add to this that I'd like, especially since we're going back to Bach, for them to consider. I think we should, in order to get a little more flexibility, I think for TOD type projects, we should look at the possibility of maybe adding, greater, handicap or type A units than the Fair Housing Act or ADA would require, just because, we're in such close proximity to something like Challenge Aspen. But also, I think it would be nice if we could consider allowing for micro units or micro houses in the same set of circumstances. I think there's, and you just can't allow for that just by general blanket use, but you could have a special review for those sort of things so they're not prohibited by our own guidelines. I think there are conditions where we would want that. And I think for everyone's, use, our green building guidelines require many of what Michelle was talking about, much of what Michelle was talking about. And then if we adopt the 2015 IECC, I think it would require far more than anything we'd consider, and it would put our whole affordable housing program into question. So we'll have to consider how all of those things impact each other. Because it's not like I'm opposed to these things. I just, I think we should have an honest discussion before we start requiring extra stuff about what it all costs, because we don't want to, in our effort to make one thing, one greater good happen, to nix another greater good. It's a balance. And that's all I have to say. So does anyone else have any comments to make? Cindy.
I'll just add one thing about the tubs, that I think even if it's a mini tub, it would be helpful to people who have kids to have that. So I would keep that in there.
Good point. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other comments? All righty. Thank you. Let's move on to our really fun item tonight, our work session on Public Works Manual for future amendments to the municipal code.
Okay.
Are you going to handle that, or is Boyd?
We have Boyd Beerbaum on the line as well. He's the Public Works Director. I'm going to give an introduction, so let me go to share screen here. Just a quick second.
Susan? Oh, okay. Someone's talking to me now.
Okay, sorry, a little technical difficulty. There we go. So this is a work session on an update to the town's Public Works Manual and some associated code amendments to the water distribution section of the town code. The intent behind having a work session is to really update the P&Z on what staff's up to with regards to the Public Works Manual, and not necessarily to solicit significant feedback, as we understand that the Public Works Manual is highly technical. But as background, the town has had a Public Works Manual that has some of the specifications related to streets, landscaping, water distribution, and some other topics. And we've had that manual for about 15 years. But it hasn't been updated since 2008. So the Public Works staff, in conjunction with members of the planning staff, as well as the town's consulting engineer, SGM, have been working on an update to the manual for about a year, kind of off and on. And so this update has the following chapters in it, which you can see in your packet. It has the introduction section, which is a section that discusses the purpose and applicability of the Public Works Manual. And then there's a section on drainage and erosion control, which provides drainage and erosion control specifications and best management practices for improvements in the town's right-of-way and easements. It also, as it indicates, addresses drainage calculation methodology for private properties as well. Then there's a section 3 or division 3 related to the water distribution. Provides specifications for water transmission and distribution facilities in the town's right-of-way. And it should be noted that water service for West Basalt, as well as the Aspen Junction area, is provided by Mid-Valley Metro District, and the water specifications and sewer specifications for Mid-Valley Metro District system are established by Mid-Valley Metro and not the town. And then the fourth division in the Public Works Manual is the streets section. It provides for specifications related to roadway design, including pavement and sidewalk, as well as curb and gutter specifications. And then there's a division 5, which is related to landscaping and irrigation, which provides specifications for plantings in the town's right-of-way, as well as irrigation specifications. And then finally, there's a section 6, which is construction standards, which provides guidance on testing and acceptance of public improvements, as well as provides requirements for as-built drawings, because after public improvements are done, we require as-built drawings. And it also provides specifications on the materials used for sidewalks and streets. And it also provides guidance on how we administer street closures related to construction activities, and kind of signage and requirements for that. The intent behind the update to the manual is to update the specifications to better fit what Public Works has been requiring in terms of streets and drainage, as well as improvements to the town's water system. And to better bring together all of the technical specifications in one location. They are currently kind of spread throughout the Public Works Manual, as well as portions of the town code. So there's going to be a need to process some code amendments, especially to the subdivision section of the town code that would go along with the update here to the Public Works Manual. Because there are a lot of specifications for stuff like snow storage and pavement requirements that are in the subdivision section of the town code. So staff will bring forward some language associated with that in a future meeting so that we can kind of get all the specifications in one location. So staff will be bringing forward those code amendments to the P&Z in a future meeting to make a recommendation to the town council. In addition to the adjustments to the Public Works Manual, as well as some of the adjustments to the town code subdivision section to take the specifications and put them in the manual, the Water Department has also provided or is also working on some code amendments. Let me show those. With the intent to specify the need and responsibility for maintenance of water lines. We need to strengthen the language in the town code to make it clear that service lines need to be maintained by property owners and that the main water line system is under the town's maintenance responsibilities. Also to amend the backflow prevention requirements to bring them up to state requirements. And backflow prevention, for anybody that doesn't know, is basically a technical requirement that doesn't allow for kind of cross-contamination of water in the potable water system. And then a third kind of topic there is to provide a penalty for unmetered residents to encourage property owners on the town's water system to keep their meters operational. The Water Department has been kind of struggling with that on certain properties, and they don't really have any kind of requirements to provide some sort of penalty or kind of impetus to get property owners to keep their water meters working. So staff will be bringing those code amendments back to you as well. In total, staff wanted to just give the P&Z an update about what we're doing with the Public Works Manual, and staff is happy to answer any questions that P&Z may have on the manual and to take any feedback if anything popped out to P&Z members when you're looking through the manual. But staff understands that there may not be too much feedback, as these are primarily technical specifications and are really engineering related. But staff would suggest that if you do have questions or you have feedback, we'd be happy to take it and try to answer the questions you may have.
Before we get started, I kind of wanted to make an observation that took me a little bit just to get my mind around.
Put on the Senate.
Is that this is not for general construction. This is just for the things that the town will eventually own or the town is building. So this is not just things that are required of homeowners when they're building. Is that true, James?
That's primarily the case. However, there are some specifications for drainage calculations that are needed on private property. So if somebody is coming in to develop a multifamily building on private property, they have to provide a drainage study and report, and there's some language in there that gives guidance on how you do those calculations. But
for the most part, this is for municipal construction.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah, because it's all really best practices.
Yes.
I write this stuff for a living, and this is stuff that general people don't do. But for stuff that the town's building that's going to last, you're expecting it to last for 30 to 50 years. Yes, you want to go that extra mile.
So maybe I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see everybody.
So I can see everybody, and we'll go through comments and questions. Let's start with Michelle again. Michelle, do you have any comments or questions?
I do. I think they're simple, but I do have about 5. One in section 2.3, stormwater and urban runoff. My small comment here is particularly for urban runoff, it seems like that should be completely treated on site. So that's just a general thought there. And you don't have to answer all of these necessarily. In 2.4, the hazardous materials management in spill prevention, I kind of along the lines of what you were saying earlier, James. I'm just looking for the teeth in the spill prevention. You know, what's really gonna, what are the consequences if something happens? And it's silly to say that if it's a town project, because the town is gonna deal with its own consequences, but for a private developer. And I'm almost done. And then down in the landscaping, just scroll down here, I'm sorry. My question in the landscaping is, here it is. Oh, so plantings.
Yeah, that was the intent, but we'll make sure that that's reinforced.
That it's called out. And then my last little silly thing is on the 4.1.3 bicycle paths. It just doesn't say when, why, how, what the trigger is that triggers developers for being required to build the bike lane.
Okay.
You know, it's just, it's a little tiny thing, but it says what they have to do if they're required, but it doesn't say what the trigger is if they are required. And the same thing on the irrigation systems. We can just note something in there about it being, you know, the most water efficient system available. That's all I was looking for. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Thank you. Kyle, do you have any comments to make?
More of a question, I guess, of if we would like more time.
Talking to me?
Sorry, Sarah, I don't think you're on mute, Sarah. When can we, how late can we put comments to you guys? Is there a cutoff date?
We don't have a cutoff date. You know, I think our intent is we're working on the code language to go along with this. So we would hope to bring that back in, you know, maybe a month or so. So, you know, in the next couple weeks would be helpful if you have comments on adjustments.
Okay. So I would just, more time for myself.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Gino, do you have any comments or questions of staff?
No, not really. I just enjoy listening to what everyone's saying.
All right, thank you. Bernie, comments or questions?
No, I'm like Gino. I don't have comments or questions. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Bernie. Rob, do you have any comments or questions?
I do, just one, and it's a doozy. Could we take a look at, I'm on page 19, purpose and applicability. So 2.3.1A, the intent of these regulations is to minimize water quality. Where I think we mean to say minimize damage to water quality. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that was
read-
one of them that I had flagged in my comments, Rob, so thanks also for having an eye on that one.
Well, can you recite that section? I'm sorry.
2.3.1, purpose and applicability,
Yeah.
section A, purpose. The intent of these regulations is to minimize water quality and flooding impacts.
Well,
It doesn't read. I think you mean to minimize damage to water quality.
yeah. Got it.
Told you it was a big one.
That is a big one. Yes. Thanks.
That's all I got. Thanks.
All righty, thanks, Rob. Cindy, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
All right, thank you. I also want to add that for someone who writes these things for a living, They're pretty mind-numbing to do, and little errors of language happen all over the place. But I do admire the quality and thoroughness of this for the most part. And I do agree with Michelle's comments. I think that some of the ones you were saying about the triggers, the triggers are sitting in front of us. They're, you know, Susan and James. And so it's there, you know, they're just required to do something, and then they have to do it to our standards, which is kind of how that works, because it's usually through a PD. But anyway, I just wanted to say, I think good job. Good job, Boyd.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions or comments to add? None? Okay.
It looks like Kyle had something else there.
I guess that you guys were looking for recommendation regarding the water meters and people not keeping them working. I guess, is it not are people turning their meters off to not pay for water? Or they're just, I guess, what is going on?
No, I think, and Boyd, you can add to this. I think mainly that they're becoming in disrepair, and then they're not having them repaired, even though we continually send notices to them to repair them because it's their responsibility. Boyd, you want to speak to that?
Well, another thing with you know, with a large part of the housing being second and third homes is access. Trying to get a hold of somebody to get in the house, figuring out who their property manager is, and kind of working all that out. When somebody's going to be in town, you know, some people are okay with you going in the house and doing the repair, and some people want to be there. So, you know, logistically, it can kind of be a nightmare. Sometimes, like today, our meter hasn't been working in a while. We finally got access to it, and all it was a broken wire, and it was fixed in 2 minutes. But for the last few times we've read, we haven't been getting a good reading. We knew something was wrong with it, but we got it all worked out. And just to make it easier on our technicians and the homeowner and stuff, is just trying to establish contact and getting into the property.
All righty, thank you, Boyd. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts about this? No? All right. Let's move on to item 5A, P&Z direction on request to provide letter to Eagle County regarding 280 Roaring Fork Court. Susan.
Does it,
Gino.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Does Section 4 Public Works Manual require any approval or recommendation from this commission?
Sorry. Gino, our staff thought would be that we're going to bring it back to you for a recommendation, and we're going to bring it back with some code amendments.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
if you do come up with adjustments, as Kyle was asking, in the next couple weeks, let us know, and we're happy to consider making
That
them.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All righty. Susan, are we ready for 5A?
Yes, and I actually have a couple important announcements before I start for everyone who's really watching on TV. So this is the discussion on 280 Roaring Fork Court, and I wanted to flag that our clerk's office actually changed the meeting, the webinar ID, and so some folks are having trouble entering into the meeting and being an attendee. So what we are asking people to do, that link should work, the link that's on the agenda. It's the second page in the agenda, but the webinar ID is 959-1492-8653. And Caesar put that up on the grassroots. So what we're going to do, this is not a public hearing. This is a discussion on 280 Roaring Fork Court, and it's really brought to you as a P&Z because you guys brought it up at the last meeting. And the P&Z expressed concern with the building that had occurred, and then asked us to talk internally about maybe the best way to proceed. So we did that. Staff, we talked in the planning staff, we talked with the town manager and the town attorney, and really what we thought was the most appropriate is to decide to have the P&Z kind of advise on the best way to move forward. So we also talked to the Eagle County planning staff, and we also received a lot of emails. We received a lot of emails of concerned residents in the Elk Run development. James spoke with Tanya Dibbs, and Tanya gave us a number of emails indicating support for her proposed development. So right now, what's been permitted is a building permit under Eagle County's regulations. And building permits are not covered. We have an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement with Eagle County, which really kind of spells out how are we going to deal with coordinating land use applications and master plans. But it calls for a referral to our town when there's a land use application. And there hasn't been a land use application filed yet. The owner has obtained a building permit, and she's had pre-application discussions with Eagle County. So this is a piece of property that's not in town. It's included in our master plan. Our master plan, as James will go over the specific language, but it encourages, annexation of the property, as we wanted to do with all of our kind of enclave properties in the town of Basalt. So what we thought was most appropriate was for the planning commission to send a letter to Eagle County that addresses the items that we would like to see in an application that would be submitted to Eagle County and then given to us for a referral. And so right now we don't have a land use application, and I want to make that really clear because we're not proposing that the P&Z make any recommendation on the specific proposal tonight. We do have a lot of concerned residents, and it's fair to listen to them and to understand their concerns, but then to kind of regroup on what we're proposing, which is a letter to Eagle County. A couple of other things just to note that we did, we drafted a letter that James is going to go over. We sent it to the owner, Tanya Dibbs, right after we sent it to you, and she may or may not be participating in the meeting tonight, but I just wanted you to know that we did forward her the materials, the letter, the draft letter. This is not an official public hearing. So I had talked to the chair, Commissioner Marin, about the best way to proceed, and we thought that we would allow for public comment. I think Bill has some things that he wants to make clear that we need to have our comments short. I would like to enter into the record the materials that were emailed out to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Almost all but two of those letters are on the town's website, just the two that were submitted late. So we had a number of emails from concerned residents in Elk Run. We had letters of support that were given to us by Tanya Dibbs. We received an email. The second set of emails that I sent you included a letter from the board of the Elk Run HOA. And then right before the meeting, fairly close to the meeting, we sent you two other emails One was in support and one was expressed concerns with the proposed application. So with that, I'll turn it over, but again, I just want to apologize. It looks like we updated our webinar, so the new webinar ID is on the link that is on the web now. If you pull it up on the revised version, it's the second page, and the webinar ID is 959-1492-8653. So that's on the second page. If you pull it up on the webinar, it's also, Caesar has it up on the Grassroots TV. And if you have trouble, we can call, if you still have trouble, we can call through my phone, which is 970-379-1514. James, is there anything else you think I should have added to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to James. I think our order, what we'd like to do is James is kind of going to go over our draft letter to Eagle County. And then if you have specific short questions to James, we don't want to get into the merits of even the letter, just kind of some questions, and then we would like to move right to public comment and then bring it back for more P&Z discussion. I think one other thing I would like to emphasize is we did have a couple conversations with the Eagle County staff. James had the first one with their staff, and then today James and I talked to their planning director. Just want to emphasize that Eagle County is confident that they are following the rules and regulations and the zoning that they have for issuing permit. They want to work with the town. We also kind of talked about trying to move forward in terms of they have some code amendments that they will be considering, and maybe we can address a couple of the items that were brought up, such as construction noise and the character of what a single-family house is. That isn't currently covered in the Eagle County Code. I just want to maybe emphasize that they were very willing to work with us. Their response to at least one of the citizens in the neighborhood was included with one of their letters where they had asked questions and then Eagle County responded. So that's part of the public record. And with that, I'll turn it over to James.
So, yeah, the draft letter that Susan sent out to the P&Z, I'd just like to go over that. You know, as she noted, there isn't an actual application that's been submitted yet. The Eagle County staff identified that they've had a pre-app on the potential to submit a special use application for a home occupation and an accessory dwelling unit. And so the comments that are in the draft letter, the first one identifies that we would request that the Eagle County staff put the owner on notice that the town has language in the master plan, and we've attached that language that encourages annexation for properties entering onto the water system or also that are trying to enter into the Basalt Sanitation District. So it recommends that the property owner come and talk to the town about the potential for annexation. The second item in the letter indicates that we would suggest that Eagle County require the property owner to provide a will serve letter as part of their application from the town for the water service for any such special use application, which is beyond the single family house that they've currently granted a permit for. And then also the item number 3 in the draft letter suggests that Eagle County require the property owner to get a new will serve letter from the Basalt Sanitation District prior to determining special use application complete. And this is for adjustments to the prior will serve letter that was
I'm gonna come,
by the Basalt Sanitation District.
yeah,
Because
I can't drink any wine.
they granted a will serve letter.
Hey, Brittany, do you want to turn your mute on?
Is it muted? Is that good?
I can still hear you.
Oh, that's, yeah, I turned on this, got it.
Here, Bernie, I can try to mute you from here and then let you talk again when we get there. Okay. And as I was saying, item number 3 would require a new will serve letter from the Basalt Sanitation District if they submitted a special use application. Item number 4 would require property owner to obtain an access permit from the town if there was increased intensity as a result of a special use application in terms of traffic. And then finally, there's a comment in there about encouraging the property owner to plant trees on site between the new single-family structure and the neighboring residential properties and Elk Run Drive to help provide for some screening. And the way this is drafted in the draft letter, it encourages that regardless of whether they submit a special use application or not. So generally, that's the framework of the draft letter. So as Susan suggested, if there are questions from P&Z, now would be the time for questions and before you open it up for public comment.
Alrighty, Michelle, do you have any questions of staff? No? Kyle, questions?
Not of staff, no.
Okay, thank you. Gino, do you have any questions for staff?
Yes. What building department approved the permit for construction?
Eagle County Building Department.
Okay, so nothing with Basalt whatsoever.
It's not in the town of Basalt currently, so yeah, it was under Eagle County's jurisdiction.
Thank you. I'll hold my comments for later.
Alrighty. Rob, do you have any questions for staff?
Yeah, does the town have any grounds to withhold the will serve letters?
Well, staff was suggesting that the merits of a will serve letter would be actually discussed when they make a special use application, and probably not at this point. That was the suggestion we received from the town attorney.
I'm looking for teeth. Does that provide the town any power over what happens?
The answer is it could potentially, but it probably should be evaluated, as if they do submit a special use application. Susan, you have any additional comments on that?
Well, it is the one significant tool that the town has, which is, why you included that in the master plan. So it is a significant tool, and we don't have her request, and that's what we're asking for, is to, have her come in and talk to us more about what she's proposing.
And what would be the conforming uses of that lot?
Well,
it's really in the unincorporated area, and I think that we could get a little in trouble if we were trying to speak to interpreting the Eagle County zoning when we haven't studied it, but I don't think we could answer that on the fly.
but a single-family house is a conforming use.
Yeah, a single
about an
family house is
ADU?
a conforming use, yes.
An ADU is a special use, special review
Okay.
use, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Cindy, do you have any questions of staff?
Yeah, I think this is would be for staff to answer. Just want to make sure that my understanding is correct. What the special use application would be for what? For using the property as a commercial studio?
Well, she's,
Is that not clear yet what the special use application would be for?
But potentially, and potentially for an accessory dwelling unit. Those are the items that have been identified in the pre-application discussions with Eagle County.
Okay. And is that a common process to build a structure first and then request a special use for it? Is that the way it usually works?
well, no, normally it isn't how it works, but, I do know that we've had maybe an instance in town where someone comes in and does something and then comes in for an additional request. I mean, I think it's happened at least once, but it's not a common, it's not a common thing. But what she was doing was applying for a building permit for a single-family house.
Okay. And
All right.
and the structure that we see, the big metal structure, is what would be what is the single family house?
Yes, currently.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understood that. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Bernie, do you have questions? Try and keep it to questions because we're not doing comments till after public comment.
Yes, so the single-family home is built, but we were not given a chance to review it. Is that per the IGA agreement?
No, as I was explaining at the beginning, Bernie, that the IGA really deals with land use applications and master plans. So by way of example, if we got a building permit for a single-family house in Elk Run, we wouldn't give that to Eagle County. The individual building permits that we do, for example, in Willits Town Center, those are really big buildings. We don't give those to Eagle County for review. But when we do a change to the application, then we would give it to them for review. Like when they wanted more dwelling units, that's a referral request that goes to Eagle County. So we don't review individual building permits. And quite frankly, it wouldn't be really reasonable. I'm not, under our current environment, I don't know, it wouldn't be reasonable to do building permits.
Okay, that answers my question, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Susan, let's open the
Okay,
public
it's off.
comment.
Okay, and just to make another announcement, because of
No, I
the
can't have that.
issue with the webinar ID, the webinar ID is 959-1492-8653. And if someone is having trouble, they could text me at 970-379-1514. It looks like we have 4 attendees probably that would want to speak. So Bill, it would be, we don't have an official public hearing, but it would be appropriate for you to open it for public comment and say the time, and then we'll call on these individual people to see if they would like to speak.
All righty. So we're going to open it up for public comment at 7:12 p.m. I would ask you to state your name and where you live and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please.
So let's start with Karen Barch. Karen, you are now on the Town P&Z meeting. Would you like to speak?
I'd like to hold off on my comments for now.
Okay. So the next person we have is Ann Grice. Ann, I've opened it up for you here, so if you'd like to make comments, you can.
Oh, I didn't know I raised my hand, but as the president of the Elk Run HOA board, I could just state a few of the comments that I put in the email I sent, which was basically concerns about the aesthetics. Don't feel like the aesthetics work with the neighborhood. Concerns about traffic now I know that at this time, the special use permit application hasn't been submitted, but I understand it to be for a home occupation, and concern about traffic. We have a lot of young children in the neighborhood, a lot of people walking their dogs, people feel comfortable letting their kids ride their bikes in the street, etc. And a lot of concern about if there were some kind of, we're not sure, but if there were some type of art openings or something going on right here in the middle of a residential neighborhood. I think that's it. Other board members might chime in if they have other concerns. But
Right.
Those were the main concerns that we had.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay.
Next, James?
The next one is Amanda. Amanda, I'm gonna promote you to be able to talk here if you have comments. Amanda, do you have any comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. Yes, I'm also on the board, and I can just expand upon the comments that we've received from other homeowners in the area. In addition to what Ann said, I think obviously safety is a big concern. I know recently Town of Basalt did an initiative to help reduce speed through the neighborhood by putting up new stop sign markers, written stop signs on the ground, and I know that was a large initiative for the neighborhood and for the town. Just having additional non-residents coming to the area does bring concern to the neighbors. And then also the possibility of larger gatherings where alcohol may be served. And then the other piece is just around the non-conforming land site standards based on the land use summary that Eagle County completed in January of 2020, and just wanting to make sure that we are being responsible for the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Amanda.
And
James,
then-
you have the next person.
Yeah, and then there's a phone number on here without a name. The phone number is 970-379-0084. Would you like to speak?
They're muted.
Once again, that phone number for the person in the attendee room is 970-379-0084, asking if you'd like to speak. If so, please unmute yourself and you can talk. We'll ask one more time here. We've got an attendee at the phone number 970-379-0084. And we're at the Town P&Z meeting and asking whether you would like to speak. If so, please unmute yourself and you can talk. Okay. Those are the attendees that we have from the public.
Ann Grice was the first one, and she was holding a comment. Oh, was it Karen? Karen Barsh.
Yeah, Karen, would you like to make comments now? We've had everybody else speak.
I'd just like to, am I unmuted?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay, great, thank you. I just want to echo the comments of the board members. I'm also in the Elk Run Homeowners Association and have the same concerns that our board members raised. I also want to point out that the letters of support that I read preceded, I believe, all of them, the construction of the unit. And so I'm not sure the degree to which the people who provided support were aware of what that structure was going to be. I just don't know, but it's something to consider. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Is that all for public comments? Susan?
It looks like it's all, and I didn't get any additional text messages. Just let me double check my email. I don't think there's anyone else that wanted to speak, because I think that they would have emailed planning@basalt.net or texted 970-379-1514 if they had an issue. So I think we're good, and we can turn it back for P&Z discussion. And
Let's close this portion at 7:20 p.m. if we could.
okay, and then I guess the other thing, we can share the screen and show you the letter. I know, Bill, that you like to kind of see people too, so you know, maybe again, let me just try sharing real quickly. And James, can you move the people off of the screen? And maybe, James, you could again, again, this is a letter to Eagle County, and it's a letter telling Eagle County the items that we would like to see in a land use application. And so, James, you want to just quickly summarize those again?
Once again, item number 1 asks Eagle County to recommend to the property owner that they come to the town to discuss annexation potential if they're looking to submit a special use application. Item number 2 requests that Eagle County require the property owner to provide a will-serve letter from the town for water surface for a special use application if they go beyond the single-family house that's already permitted. Item number 3 in the draft letter would require the property owner to provide a new will-serve letter from Basalt Sanitation District if they were to apply for the special use application. And then item number 4 would request that Eagle County require the property owner to obtain an access permit from the town for any increased intensity on the property related to traffic. And then if you can go down, Susan, just slightly on that letter, the draft letter number 5 encourages the property owner to plant trees on site between the single-family residential structure and neighboring residential properties in Elk Run Drive, regardless of whether a special use application is proposed. So that's the items in the letter, draft letter.
All righty, let's open this up for comments, and we will start at the top. I'm just going down my screen. So Michelle, could you start with comments, please?
I really think that I don't have anything extra to contribute from what the public has said, and look forward to what staff brings us for future steps in this situation.
Thank you. Kyle, do you have any comments to add to this?
I guess since we can't speak for their code, but within our code, do we have a more regimented definition of single-family home, or is this a loophole that exists in our code as well? And I shouldn't call it a loophole, but could someone do this, build this structure with our code?
You know, we didn't really fully evaluate it from that standpoint. I think we would have looked at it through a different lens and, you know, we wouldn't have permitted anything over 5,000 square feet because we have a limit in town. And so, you know, we didn't look, I think we would have addressed it differently. Not sure. I would say we would have addressed it differently. But it does give, I think, you know, Elk Run has its own design. Anyway, I think we would look at it when it came in and figured out how to address it.
So for clarity, other than the square footage, somebody could come to town of Basalt with the same design and call it a single-family home.
You know, I think we would have looked at it through a different lens and we would have pushed back.
But it's a matter of opinion. We don't have anything that is black and white.
You know, we don't have anything that says you can't have a metal home. You know, again, you know, we weren't submitted it. We didn't look at it really through that lens of you know, we didn't take it through a process. I think we would have pushed back on the building permit, but you know, we don't, it might have been, it's not as clear.
Okay, maybe a discussion to be had in a later time then.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Gino, do you have any comments to make at this time?
Yes. It's very unfortunate that we have this butt ugly facility jammed into a very successful single-family neighborhood. It's on item 5, you talk about planting trees. I don't think that's strong enough. I think you should really call out evergreen or a spruce or something to make it very clear that we are actually trying to hide them. And we're not being pussyfooting around with just trees per se. I don't want to keep hitting the planning and zoning for how this happened. What I'm more concerned about is how we can and what we can write to not let this happen again. I don't think that if we have a county land lot should be allowed to go forward without the design approval from planning and zoning of Basalt, even though it's governed by and approved by Eagle County. I don't want to get into the political part of it. I just think that we need to, for the future, decide what the hell we want as our obligation and then put it in writing so that we have something to stand by to not let this happen in the future. I feel very badly about this when people come to me knowing I've been on the commission for a number of years and they say, what in the hell did you do? And I have to stand there and backlog and make all the same pretty remarks that we had nothing to do with it, but yet this is our town, is right in our neighborhood. It's practically right smack in the back of Bernie's house. And I just think that we have to stand up and do something for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Gino. Rob, do you have any comments to add to this?
Are we commenting on just the letter, Bill, or the project in general?
Well, ideally, that's what we're looking for comments on the letter, but if you want to add something in general, but that's not applicable to this action we're going to take tonight, it would be welcome.
And just as a reminder, in terms of a future land use application, I think we would need to have the application in order to do a substantive comment on that. I mean, it's fair to say it's some generalities, but I don't think we want to make a recommendation when we don't really have an application.
I'll just say that I think the letter is fine, and I think that Eagle County talks like they want to work with us, but I'd like to see that put in action.
All right, thank you, Rob. Cindy, do you have any comments to add to this?
I am just curious about, does the Elk Run Homeowners Association not have design guidelines that properties in that neighborhood have to conform to?
Susan, can you answer that?
Well, we didn't do a full dive into the Elk Run. James didn't think that they did, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Cindy, does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah. If they don't have them, then yes, that answers my question.
All righty. Bernie, comments, please. You're muted.
But I think you have to
Yeah, this is good. I'm gonna be a conduit because I've probably gotten more calls with stronger negative comments about this structure, anything I can remember in the town of Basalt. I don't look at it. I don't have a personal strong opinion about it, but these residents, and they live within view of the structure for the most part, or in that exact neighborhood, and they are aghast that this structure, which demonstrably does not fit the typology of the single-family home Elk Run, was allowed to be permitted by Eagle County when it looks like a warehouse, a white, stark metal warehouse, and it's called a residence. I'm relaying the comments summarized of the number of people who wanted to remain anonymous but wanted to get their comments heard. And I think this illustrates our need to revisit our relationship with Eagle County, and the fact that the plain eyes on your face, what you see, and which it can be described objectively, does not conform to a single family home suburban development like Elk Run, and should have been put, or we should have a process in place, and I'd like to begin discussion about that. And the commentary I've gotten has been that it is stark white metal with haphazard fenestration, no architectural interest or breakup of the front, 2 stories high, and is simply incompatible with the rest of it. And as an Elk Run member, I can tell you, I wanted to do an addition years ago. I had to go through a design review. It wasn't thorough. I mean, it wasn't nitpicky, but it was to make sure my structure generally conformed with the spirit. And we definitely in Basalt have in place an architectural review process, although we don't formally call it that, and it's called neighborhood typologies. And if everybody on P&Z knows, we put every single, just a single family home, we put them through the neighborhood typology, and it's not to tear them down or tear them apart, but to give them positive, helpful feedback as to how they can make their structure more conforming with the neighborhood typology. This demonstrably and objectively does not fit the structure with the neighborhood typology of Elk Run. And you know, usually the owners are receptive to a degree, and they usually end up saying, you know, you helped us see things, and they make changes that responds to our constructive criticism, and they generally say they're happier with the product. We had no opportunity to do this. I think this is a glaring fault and omission with our relationship with Eagle County. And I'll just say, most of these comments, like I said, are people who are impacted by this. Now, I will note, and I think this letter is inadequate, I think what you need is a comprehensive landscaping plan that shows how it will be screened from the street and from other homes' view, including trees, shrubs, planting. And I think we should, maybe that's not the place to indicate that we're not pleased. Many residents are not at all pleased with the process that allowed this. And I know the owner has indicated a willingness to work with the community and to provide this planting and screening. And I think that's a good step forward, that we could probably come to an agreement, since she's indicated that willingness to do that. But the structure simply does not relate to the rest of the neighborhood. And it's not an agricultural use place. There's not acreage out somewhere. It doesn't look like a farmyard. It doesn't look like a barn. It doesn't look like a farmhouse or silo. People would love if there was some architectural reference, real reference to architecture. And I just have to agree that it does look like a very stark warehouse. And I heard a lot of strong comments. I'm kind of summarizing them and trying to keep it as objective. Look at the elements, look at what the homes, there's a good variety, new and old, different construction, but there is a general sense of the architectural community in Elk Run. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, anyone have any additional comments to make at this time? No? Okay. Since everyone has a chance to ventilate their ideas, I think we should entertain a motion to accept the letter. Do we have a first?
I want to suggest an amendment.
You could do that.
Okay.
You're next, you know.
Well, just on the landscaping, let the wording be that the applicant or the owner shall be encouraged to submit a comprehensive landscaping plan, including berms, trees, shrubs that would screen this structure that does not appear to conform with the neighborhood typology of Elk Run homes, that it is screened for views from the street and the neighbors.
Thank you, Bernie. Gino, you have a comment to make, or you want to make a motion?
I'm okay with the shortened version of that.
You're okay with or do you want to make a motion for the original version?
No, it's good. I'll follow him.
You'll follow, okay, do we want to,
Yes.
okay, does anyone want to make a motion for the original letter or Bernie's letter?
I'll make a motion for Bernie's letter.
All righty, do we have a second? We have first from Michelle. Do we have a second?
We discuss, I'd like to hear the exact wording that we're voting on.
Okay, Susan, can you repeat that?
I'm not 100% sure I can, but
Well-
I think that what Bernie is asking for, encourage the property owner to submit a comprehensive landscaping plan that includes berm. I'm gonna add Gino's spruce trees to provide effective screening between the new single-family residential structure and the neighboring residential properties to make it more compatible with the town's neighborhood typologies.
Yes.
Submit to whom?
Oh, this is going to, Bernie didn't say.
Well, this is.
This letter is
changing your
going to
wording
Eagle
of that
County.
Paragraph on that letter to Eagle County
Yep.
from P&Z.
Yep.
So this is going to to Eagle County and to be accepted by Eagle County then?
It's going to Eagle County for their consideration.
Yeah, and then we make referral comments based upon what that application is. See, we have no application yet. We're just asking what we'd like to see in the application.
Right. and
Okay,
just-
so we would then see the landscape plan.
If they submitted an application, what this paragraph actually kind of stands on its own and saying, you know, we encourage Eagle County to, we encourage the property owner to submit, this goes regardless of whether they do an application or not. So this is saying that even if the applicant doesn't proceed with a special use application, we would like to see them submit a comprehensive landscaping plan. So if she didn't proceed with the land use application, we would like to see the landscaping anyway. Look at it that way. So even if she didn't submit a request for more commercial activity and an ADU, you're saying that you would like to see landscaping.
Are you okay with this, Rob?
Yeah, I'm thinking you just asked for landscape plan then. I mean, isn't that the normal way it's done without spelling out so many details?
I would agree with that as well. I think it should be, if you were gonna ask for something like that, it should be relatively simple. We're not actually reviewing this. We're responding to a review.
And personally, I think it's better just to say to plant rather than a landscaping plan. I mean, if she did submit an application, she would include a plan with it. Here, we're actually just, we're requesting the planting of additional materials to screen the development. So that's another way of looking at this. We don't want a plan, we want them to plant some materials.
So what are you suggesting, Susan?
I think, well, I guess I would say just to make number 5, but I would include Gino's suggestion about spruce trees. James, do you have any other thoughts on that?
I would like for you to make clear what the purpose of the plan is. Yeah, if you say a plan for the purpose of screening the structure from the street and the neighbors, I would be satisfied by that.
So maybe you could amend number 5 to say, encourage the property owner to plant spruce trees on site between the new single-family residential structure and the neighboring residential properties in Elk Run Drive to screen the new structure from view of the adjacent properties, regardless of whether they propose a special use application.
And just one slight modification to that is just use the word spruce trees and other landscaping, because it might be, you know, I don't think we just want spruce trees. It could be a mixture of trees and other landscaping. Do you want to read that back, James, with mine?
Encourage the property owner to plant spruce trees and other landscaping on site between the new single-family residential structure and the neighboring residential properties in Elk Run Drive to screen the new structure from the neighboring properties in Elk Run Drive, regardless of whether they propose a special use application.
Did you get the purpose of screening?
Yes, that does it for me.
What is the purpose, or what grounds do we have if they're not applying for a special use permit to have them landscape this? There's no other legal action if they don't apply for an application and they just use this as a single family house and that's it, and it just stays open.
Well, we're encouraging this to happen. We've had some indication from the owners through others that she is willing to look at this, and so it's, you know, it may be at the end of the day that we're not able to require it, but I think it's a, you know, an effort to work with everyone.
Well, see, if we're not able to require it, why are we going into such specifics about what it's for? I mean, I think that's kind of just, it's unnecessary, I think.
Well, to me, if you just ask for some spruce trees, you might just get a few spruce trees, and that doesn't necessarily do what we want it to do, and it's pretty vague. You know, if you're asked for a landscape plan, you get an actual plan.
But we want them to landscape it no matter what. I think that's the goal.
Right, but we're not certain they're gonna submit a land use application that will actually get to require that through. So by suggesting this, I feel like Bernie's language at least puts out our desire to have something done to make the structure more palatable for the neighbors in the unfortunate event that there's never a land use application submitted. Whether they're required to do it or not, you're right, we have no teeth to do it, but at least we can put out the intent that they need to, it would be appropriate for the owner to do something to make the building more desirable for the neighborhood.
Bernie, yes.
I agree with everything Michelle just said, but yeah, I got a lot of elk runners got a email from the owner of the property, Tanya Dibbs, and she indicates a real willingness to work with us on the landscape plan. She says in her email, I think once I have finished landscaping, it will not bother anyone. And if Elk Run allows me to plant a couple of trees on their open space, the building will soon be hidden for view. And she finishes up saying, I prefer to be neighborly and hope to get a chance to put all of these bad feelings to rest. And I think that's a very nice statement, and it indicates a willingness to cooperate and recognize the high level of concern of the neighbors of the visual impact. And I agree with Michelle, just encouraging is fine. We don't need any teeth. The owner's already indicating a willingness to go down this. This just indicates we'd like to see, you know, a thorough formal plan and not just a few random spruce trees.
Well, then you want to see a landscape plan, not just a few spruce trees.
Yes, correct. That's what I want.
So that's the motion that we should be talking about.
Well, I agree with you.
That's the motion that Bernie proposed, and that's what we're discussing now.
No, Bernie just said a landscape plan. The original motion was spruce trees and a berm.
Well,
I amend it to be a landscape plan to make it clear.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a first, do we have a second based
Hey,
on the
just
language?
a second though, I'm not sure when we do the minutes, we know what the motion is. The last motion was read by James, and I guess my one question is if we reread it and we put a landscape plan and plantings and subsequent plantings, would that work?
Does that work for you, Bernie?
What was that? I can't hear you.
Well, just a second, I was just talking to James and then I was gonna have him read it.
So how about this? Encourage the property owner to submit a landscape plan and to subsequently plant spruce trees and other landscaping on site between the new single-family residential structure and the neighboring residential properties / Elk Run Drive to screen the new building from the neighboring residential properties in Elk Run Drive, regardless of whether they propose a special use application.
Well, that's fine with me if other people want to get on board.
I have one question. Why can't we just say trees? Why do we have to say spruce trees?
Oh, I don't care about spruce trees.
Okay.
I just want a full landscape plan, a variety of landscaping. She can pick it, forest screening, and that's the gist of it.
Okay, is that clear, Susan?
Yeah. I have
Yes,
one
we're
question.
taking the word spruce out. And it's
Yes.
otherwise, it's as James read it.
Okay, Gino, you have a question?
Yes, has anyone from staff actually looked at the plans of the building? I don't yet understand if it's just a house, single residence, or single residence and a warehouse, what else is inside that house?
We were not given the plans. We don't have a copy of the plans, so we didn't review the plans.
I'd say, Gina, that's what I was asking about before. I think it's not a warehouse, that is the house.
But do we care what happens inside of the house? We don't care about what happens in other people's houses. I don't know.
So I'm concerned procedurally. Did we ever really have a motion?
Well, I make the motion to send this letter, changing that paragraph with the wording that James just read out, striking the word spruce.
Okay, and then I think that Michelle was the second, so Michelle would need to accept those changes. Weren't you the second, Michelle?
Yeah, I accept those changes.
Okay, we have a first, we have a second.
And we're
All
gonna
in
do
fa-
roll call on this one.
Oh, okay. Susan, do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Bill Marin,
Yes.
Kyle Oberketter,
Yes.
Gino Rossetti. Gino?
Gino?
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Eric Volzek, Michelle Tebow,
Yes.
Bernie Grauer,
Yes,
Rob Levitt,
Yes.
Cindy Hirschfeld.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
All righty, we're done. Staff updates and commissioner comments.
Well, in terms of staff updates, we've been working hard on the Albany Pool project. And that's well underway. And we are working on the Basalt River Park plan, and we've been working with the developer on getting his documents, his entitlement documents, the remaining ones finalized. And what we're working toward is a work session with the town council, and I just want to confirm the date. It would be the fourth Tuesday of February, which would be February 23rd. So right now what we have set is a joint meeting of the town council, P&Z, and Post, which is Parks, Open Space, and Trails, for the purpose of talking more about the details on the River Park portion of the River Park development. We've had some pre-application discussions on applications that aren't quite ready yet to really talk about. The town council approved the Lot J at last Tuesday's meeting. That was at the sketch plan level, as you remember, and you probably saw in the paper that there was some discussion about the council really looking for more community benefits for Lot J, for the development, but otherwise it was well accepted. The big news of the day probably is that Stotts Mill finally was finalized their documents, and so they were sent to the title company for recording. Is there anything else to add on that one, James?
They're still waiting for their letter of credit to be put in escrow, so we'll see.
And everything else is advancing. Is there anything else, James, you think I should maybe add?
No, I think that's a good summary.
You know,
I would like to make one comment if I could, Susan.
yeah,
I wanted to talk about the river work that's happening at Willets Lane and Highway 82. I understand they have heavy deadlines because of the Corps of Engineers river work requirements. But if the town could ask them not to use a rock breaker at night, I would really appreciate it so I could sleep. It is really loud. Like say after 9 o'clock, the rock
Okay.
breaker should be off, I think.
Yeah.
We can kind of follow up on that.
Yeah, especially on Saturday and Sunday nights.
Yeah, that was kind of news that we learned today, is that Eagle County doesn't have hours of construction. So that is why you saw construction during the holidays.
You know, I understand, and you know, it's like tolerance is the thing, especially when the work is so heavily required, but when they work so late at night, it's just, I don't care if they're working, but the rock breaker is really loud. It's a jackhammer, a big one.
We can follow up on that.
That would be great. I'd really appreciate that. Does anyone else have any comments to make?
Yes.
Gino?
I don't want to leave this, even though it's late tonight, I don't want to leave this. I would ask the commission if they would, members, if they would mind asking staff to consider what we might do for the future to make the right language between the town and the county so that we don't have these debacles again.
I support them.
I think so. I think so too. But it's hard to think of things, that such as a use by right. You know, no one could have anticipated that happening. So it was one of those fall through the cracks sort of things. But it still warrants attention to think about what those things could be. So I think that would be beneficial if we could entertain that a little bit with them.
Okay.
But I also don't want to poison our relationship with Eagle County Planning either by starting to get really, demanding on them either. Anyone else have any thoughts about this matter?
I second Gino's suggestion. I think it's appropriate, and we don't have to have a confrontational approach, but certainly a lack of communication between Eagle Planning led to the approval of the tree farm, highly inappropriate project, and I think Basalt needs to make its desires and wishes known clearly. And I think they're willing to listen.
Alrighty, thank you, Bernie. Michelle, do you have a comment?
It's really quick. I don't know how long we've had this existing IGA, but maybe we need to look at making some amendments to it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Or do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Bernie first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Rob second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Susan, is everything clear? Do you need any clarification from
I think we have it, and we'll put the motion in the next minutes, but I think it was clear.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you.
all have a very good evening.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.